Single dad rescues his intoxicated boss, the unexpected romance that changed everything. The night air was crisp as Michael Collins carried his unconscious boss from the company party to his car, never imagining this moment would completely transform both their lives. If you've ever believed that love finds us in the most unexpected circumstances, this story will touch your heart. Before we dive in, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories that remind us how life's greatest challenges often lead to our greatest blessings. Michael Collins had mastered the delicate balance of single fatherhood and professional ambition, or so he thought. At 34, he'd spent the last 6 years raising his daughter Emma after his wife's sudden death. Their cozy apartment in the city's suburbs wasn't much, but it was home. His position as senior marketing strategist at Horizon Innovations provided stability, even if it meant working under Victoria Hayes, the notoriously demanding CEO whose perfectionism had earned her the nickname Ice Queen throughout the company. Victoria's reputation was well earned. At 36, she had built Horizon from a struggling startup to an industry leader through sheer determination and an uncompromising work ethic. Employees respected her brilliance but feared her cutting criticism and impossibly high standards. Few knew about the painful past that had constructed her walls, a childhood of neglect, a devastating betrayal by her former business partner and fiancé, and the loneliness that came with success. Victoria had convinced herself that vulnerability was weakness, and weakness was unacceptable. The annual company holiday party wasn't something Michael particularly looked forward to, but attendance was essentially mandatory. He'd arranged for his neighbor Mrs. Patel to watch Emma for the evening, promising to return before midnight. The event was held at an upscale hotel downtown, with an open bar and elaborate decorations that reflected Horizon's successful year. "Daddy, do you have to go?" Emma had asked as he straightened his tie before leaving. "Just for a few hours, sweetheart. I'll be back before you know it," he promised, kissing her forehead. "Besides, Mrs. Patel brought those cookies you love." At the party, Michael maintained a professional presence, making small talk with colleagues while keeping an eye on the time. He noticed Victoria across the room, looking uncharacteristically relaxed as she accepted another glass of champagne. He'd never seen her drink more than a single glass at company functions before. As the night progressed, Michael observed Victoria becoming increasingly unsteady. When she nearly fell while attempting to address the gathering, he instinctively moved to her side, catching her arm discreetly. "Ms. Hayes, are you all right?" he asked quietly. "I'm perfectly fine, Collins," she insisted, though her words slurred slightly. "Just give me a moment." Michael guided her to a nearby chair, concerned by her flushed face and unfocused eyes. "I think you might have had a bit too much to drink. Would you like me to call you a car?" Victoria's usual composure crumbled as tears suddenly filled her eyes. "They all think I'm made of ice," she whispered. "Maybe they're right." Alarmed by this uncharacteristic vulnerability and aware of how the other employees were beginning to notice, Michael made a quick decision. "Let me take you home," he offered. "You shouldn't be alone right now." To his surprise, Victoria nodded, allowing him to help her to her feet. He guided her through a side exit to avoid curious stares, supporting her weight as they made their way to the parking garage. The drive to Victoria's address, an exclusive high-rise downtown, was mostly silent, interrupted only by her occasional murmured directions. When they arrived, Michael realized she was in no condition to make it upstairs alone. "I'll help you to your door," he said firmly when she protested. In the elevator, Victoria leaned heavily against the wall. "Why are you being so kind?" she asked suddenly. "I've never been particularly nice to you." Michael considered his answer carefully. "Because it's the right thing to do," he replied simply. "And because everyone deserves kindness, especially when they're vulnerable." Something in his words seemed to pierce through her intoxicated haze. For a moment, her eyes cleared, and she looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite decipher. Once inside her immaculate penthouse apartment, Michael helped Victoria to her sofa. "I'll get you some water," he said, heading to the kitchen. When he returned, he found her staring at a framed photograph, the only personal item in the otherwise sterile space. "My parents," she explained, noticing his gaze. "Before everything fell apart." Michael sat beside her, offering the water. "Do you want to talk about it?" Perhaps it was the alcohol, or perhaps it was the genuine concern in his eyes, but Victoria began to speak. She told him about her father's abandonment when she was 8, her mother's subsequent depression, and the years she spent essentially raising herself. She spoke of working 3 jobs to put herself through business school, of building Horizon from nothing, and of the fiancé who had stolen her business plans and her trust. "So now you know," she concluded bitterly. "The great Victoria Hayes is just a broken, lonely woman pretending to have it all together." Michael shook his head. "I see a remarkably strong woman who's overcome incredible obstacles," he corrected gently. "There's no shame in being human, Victoria." She looked at him with surprise, unused to hearing her first name spoken with such warmth. "Tell me about you," she requested suddenly. "You're always so private at work." Michael hesitated, then shared his own story, meeting his wife Sarah in college, their whirlwind romance and marriage, the joy of Emma's birth, and the devastating car accident that had taken Sarah when Emma was just 2. "I'm so sorry," Victoria whispered, reaching for his hand. "How do you do it? Raise a child alone while working so hard?" "One day at a time," Michael answered honestly. "Emma gives me purpose. And I want to show her that even when life breaks your heart, you can still find joy in the pieces." They talked for hours, the professional barriers between them dissolving as they shared stories, fears, and dreams. When Victoria finally began to doze off, Michael covered her with a throw blanket from the sofa. "Stay," she murmured sleepily, catching his hand. "Please." Michael gently extracted his fingers from hers. "I can't. Emma is waiting for me," he explained. "But I'll check on you tomorrow." As he drove home, Michael tried to process the evening's events. He'd seen a completely different side of Victoria Hayes, vulnerable, wounded, and surprisingly genuine. It troubled him to think of her waking alone with both a hangover and the embarrassment of having revealed so much. The next morning, after getting Emma off to school, Michael stopped by a cafe and picked up coffee and pastries before heading to Victoria's apartment. He hesitated before ringing the bell, suddenly uncertain about his impulsive decision. Victoria opened the door looking pale and composed, though the dark circles under her eyes betrayed her hangover. She was already dressed for work in an impeccable suit, her hair and makeup flawless. "Collins," she said stiffly. "This isn't necessary." Michael offered the coffee. "I thought you might need this. And I wanted to make sure you were okay." She accepted the cup reluctantly. "About last night?" "You don't need to say anything," he interrupted gently. "We all have moments when we need someone to lean on." Victoria studied him for a long moment. "Thank you," she said finally. "Not just for bringing coffee, but for everything." "You're welcome," Michael replied with a small smile. "See you at the office." He expected things to return to normal, for Victoria to resume her Ice Queen persona and for their brief connection to fade. But something had shifted between them. At work, Victoria began acknowledging him differently, seeking his input in meetings, and occasionally stopping by his desk with questions that could easily have been emailed. For his part, Michael found himself noticing things about Victoria he'd never paid attention to before, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when concentrating, her rare but genuine smile, and the passion that drove her relentless pursuit of excellence. 2 weeks after the holiday party, Victoria approached Michael as he was preparing to leave for the day. "Collins, Michael," she corrected herself. "I was wondering if you might be willing to review some marketing proposals over dinner tonight. The Jensen account needs a fresh perspective." Michael hesitated. "I'd like to help, but I need to get home to Emma." Victoria nodded, clearly disappointed but trying not to show it. "Of course. I understand." Unless, Michael found himself saying, "You wouldn't mind coming to my place? It's not fancy, but I make a decent pasta, and Emma would be in bed by 8. The surprise on Victoria's face was evident. "You're inviting me to your home? If you're comfortable with that," he replied. "We could work after dinner." That evening marked another turning point. Victoria arrived at Michael's modest apartment bearing a small gift for Emma, a book about a young girl who becomes an astronaut. Emma, initially shy around the elegant stranger, warmed quickly when Victoria asked genuine questions about her interests and listened attentively to her answers. After Emma went to bed, Michael and Victoria spread the work materials across his kitchen table. But their discussion of marketing strategies gradually gave way to more personal conversation. Victoria confessed her nervousness about meeting Emma. "I don't have much experience with children," she admitted. "But she's wonderful, so bright and curious. You've done an amazing job with her." Michael smiled. "She makes it easy. Though balancing everything isn't always simple." "I can imagine," Victoria said softly. "Michael, I've been thinking, perhaps we could restructure your position to allow more flexibility. You could work from home 2 days a week, which might make things easier with Emma." Michael stared at her in surprise. "That would be incredible, but why would you do that?" Victoria met his gaze directly. "Because you're one of our most valuable team members, and because..." She hesitated, "because I care about what happens to you and Emma." The admission hung between them, charged with unspoken implications. Michael reached across the table and took her hand. "Thank you," he said simply. Over the following weeks, Victoria became a regular visitor at the Collins household. She helped Emma with her science project, joined them for movie nights, and even attended Emma's school play. Michael watched in amazement as the supposedly cold-hearted CEO sat cross-legged on his living room floor, helping Emma build elaborate structures with building blocks. At work, they maintained professional boundaries, though observant colleagues noticed the softening in Victoria's management style and the easy rapport between her and Michael. Rumors began to circulate, but neither acknowledged them. The first real crisis in their evolving relationship came when Emma fell ill with pneumonia. Michael received the call from school while in an important client meeting with Victoria. Without hesitation, he excused himself to pick up his daughter. Victoria found him at the hospital that evening, Emma sleeping fitfully in the pediatric ward bed beside him. She carried a stuffed bear and a bag containing a change of clothes for Michael, along with sandwiches and coffee. "How is she?" Victoria asked quietly, her concern evident. "The doctor says she'll be fine, but they want to keep her overnight to monitor her breathing," Michael explained, exhaustion clear in his voice. Victoria sat beside him, offering silent support as they watched Emma sleep. When Michael finally dozed off in his uncomfortable chair, Victoria gently covered him with her coat and remained vigilant through the night. In the morning, Michael woke to find Victoria speaking softly with Emma, who was looking much improved. The sight of them together, Emma giggling at something Victoria had said, Victoria's face alight with genuine affection, stirred something profound in his heart. When Emma was released from the hospital, Victoria insisted on driving them home. As Emma rested in her bedroom, Michael turned to Victoria in the living room. "You didn't have to do all this," he said. "Staying at the hospital, bringing clothes, taking care of us." Victoria met his gaze steadily. "I wanted to," she replied. "Michael, I care about you both. More than I expected to. More than I thought I could." The admission hung between them, heavy with possibility. Michael stepped closer, his hand gently touching her cheek. "Victoria, I need you to be sure. Emma and I come as a package deal. My daughter has to be my priority." "I wouldn't want it any other way," Victoria whispered. "She's extraordinary, just like her father." Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a beginning rather than a culmination. When they parted, Michael saw something in Victoria's eyes he'd never witnessed before, vulnerability without fear. The following months brought adjustments and challenges as they navigated their evolving relationship. Victoria learned to balance her demanding career with time for Michael and Emma. Michael worked through his lingering guilt about opening his heart to someone new after Sarah. Emma experienced moments of confusion and jealousy, requiring patient reassurance from both adults. Their colleagues reacted with varying degrees of surprise and skepticism when their relationship became public. Some suggested Michael was using Victoria for professional advancement, others whispered that Victoria was experiencing some sort of midlife crisis. But as time passed, even the most cynical observers had to acknowledge the genuine connection between them. 6 months into their relationship, Victoria faced a professional crisis when a major client threatened to pull their business, citing concerns about Horizon's direction. The potential loss would be devastating for the company. Victoria retreated into her former workaholic patterns, canceling plans with Michael and Emma and spending nights at the office. After a week of this behavior, Michael confronted her at work. "You're shutting us out," he said quietly in her office. "We care about you, Victoria. Let us help, or at least be there for you." "I can't afford distractions right now," she replied tensely. "This is my company, my responsibility." "And we're your family," Michael countered. "Or at least, I thought we were becoming one." The word family visibly affected Victoria. She looked up from her computer, conflict evident in her expression. "I don't know how to do this, Michael," she admitted finally. "I've never had anyone to lean on before. I've always handled crises alone." "You don't have to anymore," he said gently. "That's what love means, facing challenges together." That evening, Victoria joined Michael and Emma for dinner, bringing her work files with her. After Emma went to bed, she spread the client materials across the kitchen table, explaining the situation to Michael. Together, they brainstormed solutions until midnight, Victoria drawing on Michael's marketing expertise and fresh perspective. The strategy they developed not only saved the client relationship but strengthened it. More importantly, it marked a turning point in Victoria's ability to trust and collaborate, to show vulnerability without feeling diminished. On a warm spring evening nearly a year after the fateful holiday party, Michael took Victoria to the small community garden where he and Emma had planted flowers in Sarah's memory. Emma ran ahead to water their plot while Michael and Victoria walked slowly behind. "I wanted to bring you here because this place is important to us," Michael explained. Sarah loved gardening. After she died, Emma and I started this little garden as a way to remember her. Victoria squeezed his hand. "Thank you for sharing this with me." Michael stopped walking, turning to face her. "Victoria, this past year has been unexpected in every way. You've brought joy and love back into our lives when I thought that part of me was gone forever." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small box. "I'm not asking you to replace Sarah, no one could. But I am asking if you'd be willing to create something new with us, to build a family together." He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. "Victoria Hayes, will you marry me?" Victoria's eyes filled with tears as she looked from the ring to Michael's face, then to Emma, who was watching them with a hopeful expression. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "Both of you?" Emma ran to them, wrapping her arms around Victoria's waist. "Please say yes," she urged. "I already told my friends at school you're going to be my new mom." Victoria laughed through her tears, kneeling to embrace Emma properly. "In that case, how could I possibly say no?" She looked up at Michael, her heart in her eyes. "Yes. Yes to both of you, to all of it." Their wedding was small and intimate, held in the garden where Michael had proposed. Victoria wore a simple white dress and carried a bouquet that included flowers from Sarah's memorial plot, Michael's suggestion, his way of acknowledging that love doesn't replace what was lost but builds something new alongside it. Emma served as both flower girl and ring bearer, beaming with pride as she watched the two adults who had created a safe harbor for her heart exchange vows. Victoria had included a special promise to Emma in her vows, kneeling to the child's level to deliver it. "I promise to honor your mother's memory and to never try to take her place," she said softly. "I promise to love your father with all my heart and to be the best bonus mom I can be for you. And I promise that no matter what challenges come our way, we'll face them together, as a family." The reception was held at Michael's apartment, transformed by twinkling lights and flowers. Colleagues who had once whispered about their relationship now raised glasses to toast their happiness. Victoria's assistant, who had worked with her through the Ice Queen years, tearfully confessed that she'd never seen her boss truly happy until Michael and Emma came into her life. As the evening wound down, Michael found Victoria on the small balcony, looking out at the city lights. As the evening wound down, Michael found Victoria on the small balcony, looking out at the city lights. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned into his embrace. "What are you thinking about, Mrs. Collins?" he asked softly. Victoria smiled at her new name. "I'm thinking about how different my life is from what I imagined. A year ago, I was alone in that sterile penthouse, convinced that success meant isolation. And now..." She turned in his arms to face him. "Now I have a family." "Are you happy?" Michael asked, searching her eyes. "Happier than I ever thought possible," she answered honestly. "But also terrified. I've never had this much to lose before." Michael kissed her gently. "That's the price of love. The vulnerability is worth it." Their honeymoon was a family affair, a week at a beach cottage where Emma built sandcastles while Michael and Victoria walked along the shore, planning their future. They decided to sell both their places and buy a house together, somewhere with a yard for Emma and a home office for Victoria. The transition wasn't without challenges. Victoria struggled to delegate more responsibility at work to maintain a healthier balance. Michael had moments of doubt, wondering if he was betraying Sarah's memory by being so completely happy with someone new. Emma occasionally tested boundaries, uncertain of her place in this new family configuration. But through it all, they communicated honestly and faced each obstacle together. Victoria found that her business actually thrived when she stopped micromanaging and trusted her team more. Michael discovered that honoring Sarah's memory meant allowing himself and Emma to embrace new joy. And Emma blossomed with the security of two adults who adored her. 6 months after their wedding, they moved into their new home, a charming colonial with a spacious backyard and enough room for their growing family. Victoria had converted one of the bedrooms into a beautiful nursery, a surprise for Michael when they discovered she was pregnant. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Michael had asked when she showed him the positive test. "A baby changes everything." Victoria had nodded, a mixture of fear and excitement in her eyes. "I never thought I wanted children until I met Emma. Now I can't imagine not experiencing this with you." Emma's reaction to the news had been pure joy. "I'm going to be a big sister," she had exclaimed, immediately beginning to plan all the things she would teach the baby. As Victoria's pregnancy progressed, she faced her greatest professional challenge yet. A larger corporation offered to buy Horizon Innovations for a substantial sum. The board was enthusiastic, seeing it as an opportunity for significant profit, but Victoria had reservations about what would happen to her employees and the company culture she'd built. She brought the dilemma home, spreading the acquisition documents across their dining room table after Emma was in bed. "They're offering enough money that we'd never have to work again," she explained to Michael. "But I built this company from nothing. The idea of handing it over to strangers feels like giving away a part of myself." Michael listened thoughtfully. "What does your instinct tell you?" Victoria sighed, resting a hand on her growing belly. "That there's more to life than money. That I want our children to see that integrity matters more than profit. That I'm not ready to walk away from what I've built." "Then you have your answer," Michael said simply. "We don't need the money. We need you to be true to yourself." The next day, Victoria declined the offer, proposing instead a strategic partnership that would allow Horizon to maintain its independence while expanding its reach. The board initially resisted, but Victoria's passionate defense of her vision ultimately won them over. As her due date approached, Victoria faced her fears about motherhood. One night, Michael found her in the nursery, organizing and reorganizing the tiny clothes they'd purchased. "What if I'm terrible at this?" she asked, vulnerability clear in her voice. "My own mother was hardly a role model. What if I don't know how to love a baby properly?" Michael took her hands, stilling their nervous movement. "You already love our child," he said gently. "And you've shown with Emma that you know how to meet a child where they are, to listen and support and encourage. You'll make mistakes, we all do, but you'll learn and grow. That's what parenting is." Victoria leaned into his embrace, drawing strength from his confidence in her. "We're in this together, right?" "Every step of the way," he promised. Their son, James, was born on a snowy winter morning. Victoria had approached labor with the same determination she brought to business challenges, but the moment the nurse placed the tiny, red-faced infant on her chest, her carefully constructed composure dissolved into tears of overwhelming love. Michael watched in awe as the woman once known as the Ice Queen whispered promises to their newborn son, her face transformed by a tenderness few had ever witnessed. Emma, allowed into the hospital room to meet her brother, climbed carefully onto the bed beside Victoria, her small hand gently touching the baby's cheek. "We're a family now," Emma declared with the certainty only a child could possess. "A real one." Victoria looked up at Michael, her eyes shining with tears and joy. "Yes," she agreed softly. "A real family." The following years brought the ordinary challenges and joys of family life. Victoria returned to work after maternity leave, but with a new perspective that allowed her to delegate more effectively and maintain healthier boundaries. Michael received a promotion to creative director, his talent finally recognized throughout the industry. Emma thrived in school, developing her mother's love of science and her father's creativity. James grew into a curious, affectionate toddler who adored his big sister and brought laughter to their home. On the 5th anniversary of the company holiday party that had changed everything, Michael and Victoria returned to the hotel where it had been held. They'd left the children with Mrs. Patel, now a beloved honorary grandmother to both Emma and James. Over dinner in the elegant restaurant, Victoria raised her glass of sparkling water. "To unexpected beginnings," she toasted. "And to the man who saw beyond the Ice Queen facade to the person I could become." Michael clinked his glass against hers. "To second chances and the courage to take them. And to the woman who taught me that the heart has an infinite capacity for love." After dinner, they walked through the hotel lobby, passing the ballroom where the fateful party had been held. Victoria paused, looking thoughtful. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't gotten drunk that night?" she asked. "If you hadn't been the one to take me home?" Michael considered the question. "I think we would have found our way to each other eventually," he said finally. "Some connections are inevitable. But I'm grateful it happened when it did. We might have wasted years otherwise." Victoria squeezed his hand. "When I was building Horizon, I thought success meant never needing anyone. I defined myself by my independence, my ability to stand alone. I was so wrong." She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the love that had transformed her life. True strength isn't found in isolation. It's found in the courage to let someone in, to build something together that's greater than what either of you could create alone. Michael pulled her close, kissing her with the same tenderness that had characterized their first kiss years before. "I love you, Victoria Collins," he whispered against her lips. "Every complicated, brilliant, passionate part of you." "And I love you," she replied. "For seeing me at my worst and still believing in my best. For teaching me that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the path to everything that matters." As they walked hand in hand into the night, Victoria reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From that moment of rescue, a simple act of kindness when she was at her most vulnerable, had grown a love that had healed old wounds and created new possibilities. The Ice Queen had melted, not into weakness but into something stronger and more resilient, a woman who had learned that true power comes not from control but from connection. And Michael, who had once believed his capacity for love had been buried with his first wife, had discovered that the heart expands to embrace new joy without diminishing old memories. In saving Victoria that night, he had ultimately saved himself as well, opening the door to a future brighter than either of them could have imagined alone. Their story wasn't perfect, no real love story is. There were still arguments and misunderstandings, moments of doubt and fear. But beneath it all ran the steady current of commitment, the choice they made each day to face life's challenges together rather than apart. As they drove home to their sleeping children, to the life they had built from an unexpected beginning, they carried with them the knowledge that sometimes, the most beautiful journeys start with a single act of kindness. And that love, when we're brave enough to embrace it, has the power to transform not just our circumstances but ourselves. If you found this story touching, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more stories about love, second chances, and the unexpected moments that change everything. Remember that sometimes the most meaningful connections begin in the most unlikely circumstances, and that opening your heart to new possibilities, even when it's frightening, can lead to the greatest joy. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.